an introduction to our film, let's take a moment to reflect on why today's date, Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, was chosen as a day of mourning. So it all started in the year 2449 after creation. Just 1 year after the Israelites experienced the miraculous exodus from Egypt and received the Torah, they were ready to enter the promised land. But they decided they'd first dispatch a group of men to scout out the land and formulate a plan to conquer it. When the spies returned, 10 out of 12 reported that the land was unconquerable. And that night, on the 9th of Av, the people cried and insisted that they'd rather go back to Egypt than be slaughtered by the Canaanites. Being highly displeased by the public demonstration of distrust, God declared that the Israelites of that generation would not merit to enter the Holy Land. Only their children would have that privilege, but not before wandering in the desert for 38 years. The Medrash tells us that it was then that God declared, "You cried before me unnecessarily. I will fix for you this day as a day of crying for generations." Some 500 years later, in probably the most peaceful time in history, King Solomon began his ancestral dream of constructing the Bet HaMikdash, the Holy Temple on Mount Moriah. Tens of thousands of men were needed in order to take on this project. Men were sent to Lebanon to cut down cedar trees. Heavy stones were chiseled and brought to Moriah. Ships set sail eastward and westward to bring the choicest materials for the adornment of the house of Hashem. And craftsmen were hired to help perfect the work. Finally, after 7 years, King Solomon dedicated the temple with an inaugural celebration that lasted 7 days. And for the next 410 years, the Jewish people brought daily offerings in this magnificent edifice, and the nation would gather there on each of the major festivals of Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. And it was there that the divine presence was revealed. Solomon's reign was a golden era. His capital became the center of wisdom, riches, and splendor. Monarchs, as well as ordinary people, would come from all over the world to gaze on the marvels to be seen there, and would leave with amazement and awe. The land of Israel developed into a great center of commerce, and the Jews lived in peace and happiness. As the verse says, every man under his vine and under his fig tree. However, after Solomon's death, when the 10 northern tribes refused to accept his son as their king, the country was divided into 2 kingdoms, and things began to change. It was then that many of the kings began leading the people towards the practice of idolatry. And when God sent his prophets to admonish them and warn them of destruction, they ignored their words. 410 years later, in the year 425 before Common Era, after a long siege during which hunger and epidemics ravaged the city of Jerusalem, the walls of the city were torn down. Many Jewish people were slain and burned, and many structures in the city were set aflame. Indeed, on the 9th of Av, toward evening, the Holy Temple was set on fire and destroyed. And on this very day, many other calamities followed for our people. The massacre during the battle at Beitar in the year 133 before Common Era happened on this day of Tisha B'Av. The destruction of the Second Temple happened just 1 year later on Tisha B'Av. The expulsion of Jews from England in 1290 happened on Tisha B'Av. The date chosen for the Jews to be banished from Spain in 1492 was Tisha B'Av. And Germany declared war on Russia, bringing the First World War into motion on this very day, the 9th of Av of 1914. As Jews, we believe that everything that happens is part of a divine plan, with spiritual meaning that is beyond our understanding. But as we reflect on these events and on our personal challenges, pain, and loss, I believe the most important thing is for us to ask ourselves, how will I march forward and rebuild? This, my friends, is the theme of tonight's film, The Light of Fire. The story of Yoram Ranan, an American-Israeli artist who rebuilds after a sudden fire that destroyed 40 years of work, is a story about resolve in the face of loss.
ביישוב בית מאיר, בתים עוד נשרפים. האש עטפה אותנו ממזרח וממערב, רוחות חזקות במיוחד. כרגע אנחנו ללא שליטה, תקופה גדולה ביישוב בית מאיר, בתים עוד נשרפים.
wife, I said, that's the studio, it's gone. She said, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, see, look, that's the studio over there.
After the fire, there was no studio, there was nothing. I guess it was all, like after a couple of months where he was able to build the first studio and start working again.
See, look, that's the studio over there.
This is like the New Jerusalem.
I see layers of Jerusalem, very deep down. Like it's not just the new present or future. It's like all the present and future as well as a lot of past layers going down, lower and lower depths over the years, over the centuries, over the millennia. And it's not only going down, but it's also rising up. There's also a feeling of, they look like books to me, like svarim.
I mean, now when I think about it, it was a tremendous loss. There's one painting that really stands out in my mind that I feel sad that that no longer exists. It was a painting of Queen Esther. It started off as a horizontal painting of an eagle flying through the air. He started splashing on it, and there was a woman's face that appeared. And then behind her, there was a man. He calls it like the gift of imagination. It was a very inspired piece, and there were many pieces like that.
It wasn't only the paintings, it was like the whole atmosphere of the studio. I mean, this new studio is beautiful and in a way nicer than the previous one, but there was something about the old studio that was like the life that he built in there. Like the first time that I went into the studio, then it was like, wow, this is unbelievable, just because like, you know, it's amazing that he has such passion to continue. The second or third time that I came into the studio and you see like what he's doing and it's so exciting, you realize how much isn't there, like how much is gone.
What I really like about it is that it captures a new light that's never been in your paintings before. Pray every day for Or Chadash Al Tzion Ta'ir, that we pray for new light to shine on Jerusalem.
Or Chadash Al Tzion Ta'ir v'nizkeh kulanu.
V'nizkeh kulanu b'mher l'oro. That we should be worthy for this new light.
Soon. I grew up in New Jersey, got my culture in New York City or in nature. I spent a lot of time in nature, hiking and, wouldn't call it meditating, but communing with nature and developing my inner world. And after art school, I started traveling for over a year and a half. As I went my way towards the east, I came through most of normal Europe. I went to some Eastern European countries as well, down into Greece, getting to the Middle East sort of thing. I came to Israel thinking that I was going to stop here for a few months just to chill out in a kibbutz, and then go to the to the east, to India, to the Far East, to China and Japan. And when I came here, I just fell in love with the place just immediately. I just felt very at home for the first time in my life. I don't know what I mean either. How to explain a soulful experience? But what I felt was a heart and mind fusing together. I just felt settled in myself and that I wasn't an outsider.
Before I met Yoram, I spent a year in India doing yoga and meditation, and so I was very drawn to the art and also to the spiritual quality in his art. I think it was just, it was a part of my search of finding something that would feed my soul and something more spiritual. For Yoram, a way of getting connected to God is through painting. So I was very drawn to that. I can see your fingers in the paint. And then yet on the upper canvas, it looks like you were painting with a brush, like brush strokes.
Well, there's both, actually.
My mother is, compared to my father, she's more fragile. She's a lot more sensitive and takes things more to her heart. It was hard being around her and having to see her deal with the consequences of the fire.
Right after the fire, we went out to a bar, and we were talking about that my mother's going through a really hard time, and I mentioned to him you need to be there for her. This is my mom's project of life as well. It's 40 years of her creation as well. She was totally part of, and is still part of this whole thing. And he was he heard it, but he couldn't really take it at that moment as seriously as I thought he should.
I think that I was more feeling about, these are, you painted these paintings and that you lost so much. Besides your art, record collection and books and your whole artistic 40 years was gone, that I did feel compassion for you, but I don't know if you really did feel that I don't think you did.
I was there for you.
In that way, yeah.
When people, came up to me and were very broken about it, I was shocked somehow that people would feel that. And so I guess, maybe why wouldn't my wife feel that also? But I just just saw her as sort of an extension of, okay, well, so let's just pick up the pieces and move on. Yeah, I was really quite surprised because it was just marks, freely done marks. I don't know, it's just sort of just dancing around, just for the fun of it, and then moving my hands in just to open it up more. And when I step back, it's like there's wings there, there's feathers there. It's all of a sudden like, that is so bird-like. And I remembered the whole idea of the phoenix, and I thought, that's what that is.
Let go of your conscious mind, your thinking mind, and you sort of allow yourself to be guided by...
That's the only way for me to paint now. I would never have thought of doing something. I wouldn't be so preposterous to even think of such a thing. That I'm going to paint the phoenix rising out of the ashes. That came on its own. These are all very esoteric workings for me, and very mysterious, and still is mysterious for me, maybe more and more.
Like at the beginning when I spoke to him, I thought it was like some kind of psychological way of dealing with things which doesn't really like understand and comprehend what really happened, and this like continues to go without really giving it any time or thought. I thought eventually it's going to hit him, and he's gonna understand what happened, and he's definitely gonna be depressed and definitely like gonna go through a time where he has to deal with it. It's been like almost a year. That stage never really happened.
It's definitely a different way of dealing with things, and I know that that's my way for my father to deal with it. And I don't think he was faking it. I don't think he was like trying to be optimistic in order not to feel the pain. Like, he didn't feel the pain. Like, it didn't, you know, not that he didn't feel the pain, I don't know. I mean, he didn't have that need to mourn.
I don't even want to try to find out if I would feel that. Why would I want to do that? Do I really want to think about how I really feel about losing that painting? You know, it's like, yeah, it's sad. I could say it's sad. I could say, yeah, it would hurt, but why would I want to do that? It's not, why? Why would I want to invest my emotion and my time and energy into something that's not, in a certain sense, real? I don't understand it. I really don't. Just like you don't understand me, I don't understand the normal world. I don't get it, you know? By now, people should realize that everything is fleeting. And, you know, I overcame my childhood. I overcame my upbringing. I overcame where I grew up. For me, these were very negative experiences. But I can wallow in it and feel sorry for myself, or I can say, you know what, I'm going to make something of myself. I'm going to find a world where I can operate happily, successfully, on my terms. I don't have to buy the world's terms how to live, and I didn't.
we met with the book publisher a couple weeks ago, he told us that because we didn't have high-quality photographs of many of the paintings that had burnt, it would affect the quality of the book. And Yoram was sitting beside me, and it was like, I could feel it was like, it was hard for him. Like it was really hard for him. You know, we dreamed of having the most amazing book. And yeah, we felt the loss. We felt the pain.
You know, I came here with nothing. I came with a backpack and $500 in my pocket. And slowly I, went from strength to strength and had the ups and downs and difficulties. But, you see what I have here. I lost part of what I have, but Bezrat Hashem, I did it once and hopefully I do it better now. Acceptance. I think it's a lot of acceptance, and what can I say? I refuse to be discouraged.
Well, I think it just strengthened something I already knew, that things can go. Things don't necessarily. I mean, our existence is 1 second you're here and 1 second you're not here. Everything's just like hanging on nothing, basically. So the fire was a big reminder there's 30 years of work just up in flames in seconds.
Well, I think everyone in the family, myself included, feels a greater preciousness of life. I would say I feel closer to my family now after the fire, for sure. Definitely. I mean, we all, in our own way, went through something on our own, each person, but as a family, this was a family experience.
That Shabbat in Jerusalem by friends, and first thing I did was I gave my father a huge hug. And he was like, what's going on? Are you okay? What's happening? I said, you're alive.
strong, tight, loving, hurting, rectifying hug. So I was very surprised by that he was so moved by the whole thing. That was very, very poignant to me that he was so moved.
The new series After the Fire was like, it started off with burning trees and landscapes that were on fire.
And Jerusalem and the Phoenix.
And now it's like people coming out of the blackboard that's almost totally covered with golden paint. And even a kala is
Well, it's a new beginning, right?
new beginning.
New family.
Well, I think it really brought Suri and Abba together the most, and it was interesting to see how you really woke up to be as much as you can available, and it kind of reminded you of how important family is. That's the way I see it.
I think also the fact that Suri became so much more involved in the family kind of inspired all of us to become closer and like to appreciate more of the like you becoming so like
Part and
so made everyone
contributing.
Wanting to help and
being around.
That's what I was saying. It's a shame that sometimes you need to go through like such disasters to wake up. But I guess it's inevitable and built-in inevitable.
Well, it's a good thing then.
What question? And there she is, the dance of life, this burnt piece of twisted wood, celebrating victorious, and one dancer on another dancer, painted with gold to just enrich it. I feel like I have a new way of looking at things. And I also feel that I have the license now to look at things differently and not be afraid of the new things that I see. 2 years ago, would I find a piece of wood and mount it and say, this is a great work of art? I don't know. But now I see it and I just realize that's a special piece and I want to make art out of it and I believe in it. And the response is just phenomenal to that one particular little piece of found object.
When Yoram started painting the weekly Torah portion, I actually started writing a short commentary. It was for Chabad, and then for the Jerusalem Post. And I always wanted to turn it into a book. And because of the fire, really because of the fire, and how events turned out, and people that I met because of the fire, I was actually able to finish the book this year, and it's being published now. So this book that I've written and been wanting to write for 10 years, I've written and I've actually finished since the fire. So I guess you could say that the fire kind of inspired me, but it gave me more of a motivation to finish something and actually do it. So it's pretty interesting.
Very inspiring, this piece. Very positive. And goes on to, like, not only just triumph, but to continuing its
does have a
Journey.
feeling of triumph, of victory.
Yeah, that keeps continuing.
Yeah.
There was a large bush there that burnt not only above the ground, but down into the ground. But apparently there's a seed dropped by a bird of a rimon, a little pomegranate, and that's sprouting out of that. I think that the fire also gave a certain nourishment, certain minerals, and helps things grow better. I've seen that with certain plants here. Which maybe is also a lesson to learn, you know, through adversity and hardship. It can be not only overcome something, but come back even stronger and more powerful.
Amen.
Just a little reflection. Not because I have the mic, so to speak, am I going to use this as an opportunity to speak a little bit more, because I really shared what I wanted to share before the video. I want to take a moment because I want to reflect, because I know that many of you know that art is something that I gravitate to, something that I enjoy, and spend my time. Fortunately, not a lot of time. I'd love to spend more time with art, but art is something that really speaks to me. And as I, there was talks during the film about, first of all, the fire. And I'll just share that as an artist, I can't say that I think about it anymore, but I don't draw as much as I used to when I was younger. When I was younger and I used to draw a lot, literally every day, I'd come home from school and every free moment was drawing and art. And my greatest fear was a fire. So watching this film really, really spoke to me. But as I was watching the film and the specifics of the details of the film and thinking about the concept of dark and light, it reminded me of something that I've only shared once before. And I think it was to one of our women's luncheons, about an experience that I had when I was younger, where a rabbi in the community had asked my mother if I would go over to a home of someone in the community who apparently, I think I figured this out. I'm not sure if they told me this at that time. I was a teenager. May have figured it out, but apparently he was depressed and they wanted to bring out joy and to give him joy. And I think I was just told to go, and that he used to be an artist and I would, bring out that light. They wanted him to reconnect to his art. There's an older gentleman in the community, and I went over to his home, And in our first discussion, and we did do some paintings, and we actually had a contest who could finish off a painting quicker. We copied a picture, and he took out some paints, and I believe I still have that painting somewhere that I made. It's maybe it was water paints or something, very simple painting, scenery. But in our first discussion, and we're talking about art and his ability as an artist and his experience as an artist, he went to somewhere in the house and he brought some of his art pieces that he had done. And he showed me one piece of art, and he said, you know, that he was in a deep depression at some point when he was younger. And maybe he was around the same age as I was at the time, a teenager. And he had drawn a picture, and it was a dark picture, and you could see the pain in his eyes, in his face. It's amazing what art, what you could see and what could be brought out. I mean, those paintings that we saw tonight, where you suddenly saw just colors, and then suddenly you saw people's faces within them. I wish I could, I'd love to be able to see the originals. But I was thinking about it, and I was thinking the lesson that I learned, sometimes, and this is what I think he accomplished by making this film. What I learned from that artist, from when the rabbi asked me to go and spend some time with that artist, what I really learned was that not only did I lift him up, but through my experience, he was able to lift me up. And through that, for me to lift up others. And I think that, first of all, it's a lesson in life, the ability that we have, that if we want to be lifted up, to try to lift up others, is what he did in this film. Yoram does in this film, where he shares his experience with all of us so that we can feel uplifted, and hopefully we can go and uplift others. And that's my takeaway.